What's up, everybody? Rob here. Thank you so much for tuning in. What's the end game? Silver, gold, platinum, Bitcoin. What's the real end game? What's going to happen to our dollar here? That's what this video is going to be about. If I made a video that was worth your time to watch all the way through, I think this one will be it. I could probably turn this into like 5 videos and really drag it along, but I just want to get right to the point and talk about the end game here. I've developed a very unique thesis on what I think could happen in the situation that we're in right now. And I want to share that with you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being a subscriber. If you click that subscribe down below, it really does help the channel grow. If you do find value in this content, I know I say it every video, but it really does help if you... I got this fancy schmancy pillow to remind me to say it. Smash that like button and turn it blue. Take out your frustrations on that like button, because if you do, more people will see this video. It'll get picked up by the YouTube algorithm, and it really does help if you click that like button. And if you want to subscribe, I'd love to have you in the community by clicking subscribe. It costs a whole $0.00. It's a big commitment, but I'd appreciate you being part of this channel. So the reason I wanted to make this video is there's a lot of talking hands on YouTube. You know, they got hands out here that talk. My hands are a little beaten up. There's a lot of scars and stuff on them from breaking my thumbs, and I do better with just shooting the video. I'm sorry, I don't mean to poke at that, but there's the main thing that I want to talk about is there's people that'll flip-flop back and forth, and you don't know if they're being serious or not. Some people really define themselves as strictly entertainment. I would like to consider myself education entertainment. Like, I'd like to put those two words together, because when I make a video, it's not going to be for clickbait. It's not going to be to waste your time. It's not going to be to take advantage of people. I want to put what I genuinely am doing with my own capital. I want to put things out there that I think will really help people. And what's beautiful about YouTube is you can go to past videos. You can go back to my silver video back when silver was 18. And I was talking about silver. I've been a bull on silver since the low teens. You can actually go see that video. You can see the Bitcoin video when a lot of people were very, skeptical of me by saying I like Bitcoin. This is back that first Bitcoin video I did. I think Bitcoin was like 10,000, 11,000. I don't mean to gloat about it, but I want my videos to speak for themselves, and I want to actually provide you with real value on this channel. With that being said, let's talk about how we got in this current position that we're in. Richard Nixon in 1971 was put in a very tough predicament. A lot of us like to just blame Nixon and be like, this is all your fault. You're the one who dropped us off the gold standard. This is your fault. But most people haven't done the research to actually look into why this happened. And it's important to look back on the history to know what happened then, so that we can be better prepared for what's going to happen in the future. So what happened in 1970, 1971? The dollar was back to gold, and we had all the gold in Fort Knox. And because of that, all of the other currencies of the world, all the basket of currencies out there, needed something like the dollar that was back to gold, that they could kind of latch onto. Excuse me. If they could kind of latch onto, and that way they were able to operate. And knowing that if they were latched onto the dollar, that money was now able to be redeemed in gold. What happened in 1971 is they were kind of looking at the U.S. like they were cooking the books. All of the other countries out there. They were looking at us in 1971, and I'm sure a lot of the history buffs out there know what I'm talking about. They were basically going, hey, I don't really think the U.S. has enough gold to pay for these notes of debt. I don't think they really got enough over there. We want the gold. So Nixon was put in this predicament where likely he went, actually, they're right. What do we do, guys? Do we actually, they want the gold. They want the gold. They want the gold. It's like the banks. If all of us went back to Bank of America right now and said, hey, we want our money. They wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it. That's the situation that happened in 1971. All these other currencies, they wanted to redeem their currency to gold because they didn't trust it. And Nixon was faced with a predicament. He went, you know what? The money's no longer back to gold, guys. We're keeping our gold. And if you want to use the dollar, you want to use the dollar. If you don't, you don't. It is, I think, the largest power grab of all time. I think it was the largest power grab of all time. And who knows what we would have done if we were in his position. Who knows what anybody else would have done. It's easy to just point the finger at Nixon and go, you made a terrible decision there. This is all your fault. But he was in the predicament where other people were trying to redeem their money to gold. And this is something that I didn't know until I did the research, and I realized, wait a minute, he was really put in a bind here. But anyway, that's the history lesson on what created fiat currency and why all the other currencies of the world weren't trusting us then. And they went, wow, well, now they're not even allowing us to redeem our money to gold. I guess, what do we do? And everyone at the time, including like Ray Dalio, if you look into Ray Dalio's worst failure, Ray Dalio is someone I really respect in the hedge fund space, a billionaire. His fund is actually hugely into gold right now. But he failed terribly by trying to say, hey, if our money's not back to gold back in 1971, that means we're going to crash. Nobody's going to trust us anymore, and the dollar is going to crash. And he was wrong. He was wrong. We ended up flourishing. It worked, the fiat currency, in the beginning. But it was not without getting to the terrible situation that we are in today. So the reason I want to talk about that history there is because if we understand why it was created, we understand where we are now because of it. This was a test that we were kind of pushed into because we couldn't afford to give all the gold away. We needed to keep the gold here. It was a power grab. Now, when I see the dollar index crashing under 90, it fell under 90 for the first time since the recovery back from 2007. During the recovery times, that's when the last time it was down. This is over 5 years ago. I think it was over 5 years ago the last time it was under 90. And it fell under 90 with conviction. I might have recovered to just being 90 flat, but the way it fell 44, 45 cents and dropped way into 89, that's very scary to me. Because what that basically says is the other currency of the world are not trusting the dollar again. And, what's scary about that is their currencies are not back to anything, just like our currency isn't back to anything. But the difference is we're diluting ours more than ever before. And so that gets me into the end game here and what happens. Because the biggest question on our mind as precious metal stackers is, are we going to have another 2007? And if we do have another 2007, that means metals are going to go down with the market. And so is the best play to have a bunch of fiat currency standing by, a bunch of dollars standing by to buy metals? Is that the best play? A lot of people are thinking that way, including, I think that's partially what Warren Buffett is doing right now. He bought Barrick Gold, and he also is sitting on a ton of cash right now. So the dollar is, and I said this in the last video I did, the best analogy I have is it's a game of hot potato. And that potato is getting very hot. It's like an increasingly hot potato. It's not cooling down anytime soon. It's just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And the longer you hold on to it, the worse you're going to get burned. And that's the game that we're in right now. And when I see the dollar index going down under 90, what that basically is saying is the other countries don't trust us anymore. They don't trust the dollar as much as they used to. Everyone is talking about, oh, well, inflation, is inflation even going to happen? Are we really going to go into hyperinflation? It's like, well, the dollar is devaluing. It's diluting by the day. It's fallen tremendously. Look at the dollar index over the last month, from 94 down to under 90. This is intense. When the dollar index falls, yes, precious metals should be going up because precious metals is finite and the dollar is just getting continuously printed. And to the point where all of the other countries are kind of putting us in check. And as they should. And as we're going into another stimulus package here, do you see that dilution stopping anytime soon? I don't. So why am I bringing up all of this stuff? I hope I'm not all over the board. I want to talk about the history of why we are in the situation that we're in and how that was a test trial from 1971 until now to 2020, going into 2021 now. This is a 50-year test trial. Ironically, it's like exactly 50 years, and they say that things kind of change after 50 years. But this isn't like this wasn't always the status quo. our money used to be back to gold, and it used to actually mean something. But now, 50 years later, when this balloon has inflated and inflated and inflated larger than ever before, we have these needles coming at it like never before. Bitcoin coming out of nowhere going, wait a minute, all the hedge funds are starting to use this. All these big companies, PayPal, Cash App, all these people are starting to get into hedge funds. All are starting to get into Bitcoin. You start getting these huge players, these traders going all in on Bitcoin. You know, I don't think I'm going to pronounce his name correct, but it's like Powell or something like that. Paul. He went all in on Bitcoin. And I really love listening to this guy talk. And I watch him pretty carefully. I'm going, this guy makes a lot of sense. You know, he makes a lot of sense, and he's all in on Bitcoin. Why is that? Because it's a needle heading towards this fiat currency balloon. And if you think Bitcoin's crazy, well, if you actually look at fiat currency and what we have here, that's crazier. This fiat currency system is way more crazy. So one needle coming at it, you also have gold coming at it as another needle. Then you have, silver, and you have all these other things coming at this big fiat currency balloon, and this lack of trust from the other currencies that are all partaking in this fiat currency bubble. But the person with the largest balloon is getting criticized by the smaller balloons going, hey, you guys are growing faster than us, and I think you're going to pop quicker than we're going to pop because we're smaller balloons, and you're a big balloon over there, USD. You got a big old balloon, and Powell just makes that printer go brr, and he just keeps poofing more and more money into this world, And I say world because it really does go to the world. But when you get a stimulus package, where does this money go? And I wish I knew this back at the beginning of the pandemic. I was so caught up on the first crash that I'm going, is it happening right now? What's going on? And precious metals had dropped. So all of my currency, all the powder that I had dry, I went, you know what? I'm going in big in precious metals. And it worked tremendously well. I went huge into silver at the beginning of the crash in the pandemic. When it fell down to 12, I'm like, I'm all in. That's it. I'm all in. Looking back on that, I would have used leverage and done a call option on SLV, on all the different stocks that I knew were heavily undervalued because of what I know now. And what I know now is the medium that we are using to buy stocks is US dollars. When it crashed at the beginning of the pandemic, those who were smart enough to understand that, and I had a few friends of mine trying to tell me this, and I was very thick-headed at the time because I was so focused on precious metals, which actually ended up being a major win for me. But this would have been a larger win if I knew how to play hot potato better. Because when you influxed all that fake money, when they give the stimulus package, where did you go cash that $1,200 check? You went to the commercial banks. Well, the interest rates are at 0. So before, they used to have to keep 10% of the money in the vault when you give a loan to a bank. So just to kind of summarize it, if Rob went to Bank of America and gave him $1,000, they had to keep $100 of that $1,000, and they could loan out 900 of it. So basically, that capped them at 10x, which is still already outlandish. They could take my 1,000 and turn it into 10,000 in loans. So basically, the people who are really printing money are these commercial banks. And where do you go cash the stimulus package check? Where do you put your PPE loan? Where does all this money go? Into the commercial banks. They then, now that the interest rate is 0, they can give out unlimited loans. Unlimited. So yeah, Powell's poofing the money out of nowhere, but then it's getting, I would say that the Fed is like addition, where it's adding money into the economy, but the commercial bank is where the multiplication happens. And as you know, as my math guys out there, multiplication gets pretty powerful, especially when it compounds and especially when it's in the situation that we're in now, where they're just giving away money right now. That puts us in a situation where we don't have very many options on where to put our money. And there's a lot more of it. A lot more of it. That is why I wish I knew that back at the beginning of the crash, because had I known after the stimulus package dropped that everybody was going to funnel their money into equities because they didn't have anywhere to put it, I would have known then that it would have skyrocketed the way it did. I mean, we're talking the recovery on the Dow has been insane, all the way up to new highs at 30,000. But this gets into the end game here. This gets into the point I'm trying to get across. I hope I'm not rambling too much. I hope it's making some sense here. When the dollars get multiplied by the commercial banks and get influx into this it's like it's almost like a Ponzi scheme of equities right now. If it continues to go up, which it looks like it's going to continue to go up, what I'm looking for as my end game is a detachment. That's what I'm looking for. When Bitcoin detached the way that it just did. Yeah, the stock market went up like $100 on the Dow. It went up a little bit, but Bitcoin just detached, jumped up to 23,000. Precious metals are way outpacing on the last gain, way outpaced the stock market. So if I see some more days where the stock market is like flat or just slightly up or even down, and the metals go up and Bitcoin goes up while the dollar index is crashing the way that it is, that's a very telling sign to me. What that sign tells me is that this might not be like 2007. The scary part here is I think it's going to be those, it's like those who have the knowledge are going to be able to get ahead here. And those who are being greedy and holding that hot potato until it burns them, and it's scathing hot, and they just keep holding this hot potato. And that hot potato might be sitting on cash, or it might be sitting on equities. Because the problem that everybody's not looking at when they're enjoying these huge gains in the stock market is that the underlying denominator, the medium that is being used to purchase these equities, is at risk and being heavily diluted. When you see it going from 94 to under 90 into the 89s like this, that's intense, because that's the instrument that you are using to buy your equities. Your equities aren't backed to Bitcoin. Your equities aren't backed to gold. Your equities are backed to this money that is being diluted. That's what your equities are backed to. So will those equities continue to go up or stay at least flat? Probably. Probably. Especially with another stimulus package coming in. That might actually bump the Dow up to like 35, 40,000. Now, what's the play? What's the end game knowing that? Well, this isn't like a housing bubble like 2007. So I think this is different. And that's the point I wanted to drive home with this video. I think this situation is a lot different than the 2007 crash, which is what we are all, and myself included, very afraid of in the precious metals market. Because that would tell us, okay, well, the better idea would be to sit on all my money in cash and then dump in when the opportunity is ripe and everything crashes. That strategy worked at the beginning of the pandemic. That strategy worked in 2007. Is it going to happen again? I don't think so. And I'm going to put that out there. I think that the housing bubble is a different situation than a dollar dilution bubble. And I know they're relevant to each other, but that was blamed on the housing bubble here. Now, the actual dollars are more diluted than they've ever been before, ever. And most people don't know this information. Most people are just looking for a stimulus package check, and they don't understand what the damages are from this stimulus package, including the first one. So if this one comes out, the damage is you take in this $1,200 check or whatever this next check might be, you put it in your front pocket, and then they take 10 grand out of your back pocket from inflation and from everything costing more money, and the dollar itself being diluted, and all the other currencies of the world looking at the dollar and going, hey, you guys printed way too much of this. We don't really trust you anymore. That's what's scary. And if the dollar loses its place as number one on the pedestal of currencies, what happens? That's what's scary here. It's not the stock market. In a dollar crash, the stock market might go up because it's taking more dollars to buy your stocks. And that's what's happening. The dollar index is continuing to go down and the stock market is continuing to go up. So what would happen there? Well, it's taking more dollars to buy your stocks, and it's also taking more dollars to buy your gold and silver. It's also taking more dollars to buy the Bitcoin. The people with Bitcoin, I always like to say it like this, go, you know, we were at one point taking 3,000 of your dollars, but now they're really diluted. Now we want 23,000 of them for one of our Bitcoin. And they're taking in all the other currencies too, and it's costing them a lot more currency. We're like, it used to cost us this much yen, now it costs us a lot more. It used to cost this much euros, now it's costing you a lot more for our Bitcoin. But with the dollar, that's how they're looking at it. Okay, well, we used to do it for 3,000. Now we want 23,000. And I think that doesn't change. And to see Bitcoin doing this, it's leading the herd of decentralized assets. That's what it's doing here. And to see this detachment happening with Bitcoin is it's exciting, and extremely troubling and extremely scary, because we all held, the way that I looked at Bitcoin back when I made my first video on it was, this is an insurance play. It's a schmuck insurance policy. I followed Chamath Palihapitiya very close. And when I agree with you, it's a good idea to have 1% of your portfolio in Bitcoin in the off chance that it gets adopted. But if Bitcoin does get adopted, if we do go back to a gold standard, if precious metals do come back into play, if Bitcoin does go into play, that means the other one crashes. And everybody that's in equities right now, all the 401ks, all the IRAs, all the money that's locked up, the medium that is being used to buy your stocks is being dramatically diluted, and that deficit is continuing to grow. And another stimulus package, sure, it might bump up your stocks, but they are being valued in a diluted currency. I can't drive that home enough. So will we experience a stock market crash? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what happens is the dollars, it continues to take more dollars to buy the stocks. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I really want to drive this home. And what could happen is there could be a solvency event where everybody looks at the situation and goes, wait a minute. I'm up a lot in the stock market, but the dollar index just dropped to 50 cents. So yeah, I'm up this much, but the actual dollars themselves dropped this much. What are you going to do with your dollars then? What is going to be the price of gas? What's going to be the price of silver? What's going to be the price of gold? What's going to be the price of a Bitcoin? In retrospect, in comparison to that stock equity that you're holding, if the dollar index is crashing. That's the end game. That's what I'm looking for. I am looking for a detachment from the commodities, from silver, gold, platinum, palladium, rhodium, all these things to detach from the stock market and run in its own area. And I'm looking for Bitcoin to break free and run in its own area as well, which it's doing. So am I making this video to gloat and say, Peter Schiff, remember when you said that I hope your channel does better than Bitcoin? And that was back when Bitcoin was like 16, 17,000. Now it's at 23,000. And back in my first video on Bitcoin, when it was 10,000, now it's at 23,000. Is this to gloat about that? No. It's to tell you that I'm very afraid of what's happening here. Because Bitcoin jumped up to 23,000, that's showing detachment. That's showing how much everyone is not trusting the super currency of the world, the dollar. And as soon as the dollar loses its top place on the pedestal of currencies, you will see money sucking away from the dollar and going into safe haven assets like gold, like silver, like platinum, like Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, we got to be honest, is leading the show. And that's why, as a precious metal stacker, I'm one of the few people on here that said Bitcoin is a good idea. I'm one of the, do you know how much flack I got for that? I got a lot. I got a lot of people today, and I can't believe you said Bitcoin. I said a small speculative position is what I'm doing with Bitcoin. And I think it's worth the insurance policy if it does go through, because it looks like it could. And sure enough, it's getting major FOMO right now. The fear of missing out is huge. And now that these huge companies are going in, which I said in that last video on Bitcoin, you know, as Cash App jumps in, PayPal jumping in, that started the tidal wave. The snowball is rolling downhill, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's like it's Bitcoin eating up everything. And I think gold and silver are going to follow right in its tracks, because it's all decentralized. And the reason I always supported Bitcoin, and I thought it was an interesting concept, and I hold quite a bit of Bitcoin now because I started with a small position in Bitcoin, but it happened to triple. It's literally tripled. So it's like, okay, well, I wasn't planning on having 20% of my portfolio in Bitcoin, but it just happened that way. Maybe I scale back a little bit, but it seems to me like a logical place to park some money right now for myself, because I got in at such a low entry price. The point that I'm trying to drive home is the stock market might not collapse like we saw before. The stock market might continue to be diluted and diluted and diluted, and people at the top are going to take their profits and move them into the safe havens. And when that happens, when the profit taking happens from the top here, based on how many hundreds of trillions of dollars are here versus the amount over here, When you're talking about 10 trillion in gold, when you're talking about just in the billions with platinum, you're in the billions with platinum. There's like such a small amount of it. Silver, such a low amount of it. When these people that have been enjoying these crazy profits, the smart ones at the top go, okay, it's time to cut. It's time to take profits here. Jump into Bitcoin, jump into silver, jump into gold, jump into platinum. You will see that detachment happen where those safe haven assets, the decentralized assets, jump up and the stocks kind of remain flat. And I think it'll start a tidal wave. And I think more and more of it will happen where they're jumping out of the stock market and realizing that the dollars are diluted and that's the only reason the stock market is up. And then it might crash. But what I'm looking for is a detachment with the decentralized assets prior to then. If silver jumps to 100 and then the stock market collapses, maybe silver drops to 80, maybe it drops down to 70, 60. But you sure would like to buy it back when it was 26. Same thing with gold, same thing with Bitcoin, same thing with platinum. That's the way that I'm feeling about it. I'm looking for that detachment and I'm starting to see the first signs of it. And that's why I wanted to make this video. I know I'm ranting. I know I've been off on a tangent, but I hope it was worth your time. I hope it helps you decide on what to do with precious metals. I get this question so much. Do you think precious metals are going to crash in 2007, like it did in 2007? My answer to that is I think the situation that we're in now is much different than the situation that we had back in 2007 over here. So in 2020, going into 2021, we don't have a housing bubble. We have a currency bubble. There was that too in 2007, but not anything like we have now. That's the situation that we're in. The detachment is the ultimate factor that we need to be looking at here. And that just happened with Bitcoin. That's the start. Everybody over here is going, ha ha ha, we're in these huge gains in the stock market. The stock market only goes up. You got Dave Portnoy and those guys going, the stocks only go up, stocks. They're not looking at the dollar index, obviously, because the stocks are diluted. That's the only reason they're going up. And they probably will continue to go up. So like I said in the last video, how good at playing hot potato are you? Are you a good hot potato player? Because you should be taking your profits and saving them in precious metals and putting them into Bitcoin and putting them into safe haven assets. In my personal opinion, that's what I'm doing with my money. This is just for education purposes only. This is not to be taken as advice. Disclaimer. Entertainment, education purposes, disclaimer. Anyway, that's what I hope people are doing, is looking at this as like it's a game of hot potato. Like we're holding cash right now. Oh, we got this hot potato. It's kind of burning me. Do something with it. Build a business. Okay, I got this cash. I cashed out my Tesla position on gold. Okay, silver. Okay, Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, do something with this hot potato. Because the people that are holding the hot potato in the stock market are not realizing that the dollars are being burned that are holding it up. And when they drop another stimulus package, and if Yellen gets in there and all this stuff happens, even if Trump gets put back in there, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the point I want to drive home. It doesn't matter what presidential candidate goes in there, what team is in charge. If Jerome Powell is in charge of the Fed, he's going to keep printing. He's going to keep printing. And they just said that the interest rates are going to stay at zero for the next 3 years till 2023 rather. I'm sorry. That's crazy. That's crazy. And they're going to continue to put more and more money into this crazy balloon of fiat currency. Wow, these needles are coming after this balloon. In the short term, the stock market is going to continue to go up, I think, or at least continue to stay flat. But what could happen is we see the detachment. That's what could happen here. I hope this helps you. I really do. And I want to make this video because I might not be the biggest channel here on YouTube. I know there's guys out there, the Talking Hands channels, taking a little bit of shots fired on that. But I hope that when I drop something like this, it actually helps people understand the situation that we're in. And if you are willing to be one of the first subscribers to this channel, there's 1,418 of us, I believe, as the time I'm making this video. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for being subscribed to this channel. Those of you that click the subscribe, if you hit the bell afterwards, you get notified of all future videos. And the way I do these videos is I don't do the editing. Somebody told me I should do like the fancy intro video or whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to continue to click start and shoot. I also don't want to make videos that are just clickbait. I want to actually put stuff out there that is something where I am actually doing this with my own capital. I want to put real information out there. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate you. See you at the next video. Signing out.